all, Mr. Martinez here. I just wanted to upload a quick video that highlighted some of the important ideas at the end of Chapter 4, more specifically that highlighted Dr. Manhattan's character, so that way we can think a little bit more critically about him as we continue to read this graphic novel. Okay, so a couple things that I wanted to state is that as we're supposed to read Chapter 4, we're supposed to I think that we're supposed to think of Dr. Manhattan as representing three really important components. We talked about already that his name references the building of the atomic bomb, right? So that's number one. We're supposed to think about the atomic bomb. By extension, we're also supposed to think about Dr. Manhattan in relation to technology, and what did his creation actually do, according to Alan Moore's story here, to technology in the United States, okay? The last thing, I think the most important part that Dr. Manhattan is supposed to represent is the concept of time, and two elements here. Time, as we understand it, as sort of past, present, and future, but also I think time as humans are supposed to understand memory, right? I think memory is also supposed to be something that we're supposed to be thinking about, okay? So just quickly, the atomic bomb, we had already talked about that he represents the Manhattan Project. That's why his name is the way that he is, but more specifically the development of that atomic bomb. Even more so, and I think I want to draw back just a little bit more, that aside from just linking him to the atomic bomb, he's actually supposed to be thought of as a human weapon, right? He is this embodiment of a weapon, and the United States chooses to use him as such, right? And I think that's something that's really important to understand, is that at one point in his narrative in Chapter 4, Dr. Manhattan states that he became a weapon, but more importantly that he had become this weapon that the United States controlled, so much so that his morality sort of escaped him, right? And that begs us to ask the question, this creature, he is now a creature that has this incredible ability and this incredible power. He is controlled by the United States, right? That makes us question, well, who actually has the power here? And I think it isn't until the end of Chapter 3 that we start to see who actually does have the power, right? But it is important to understand that he wasn't controlled at one part. I also state that Dr. Manhattan was important for the technology, right? So he's not just asked to step up with wars, or I'm sorry, he's not just asked to be a weapon of wars, but his existence has also allowed science to flourish. He sped up the technology advancements in the United States, according to Alan Moore's story here. But there's also this question of, well, has he made them speed up too fast, right? Because it has this effect on human beings and on people, this introduction of the atomic bomb, the introduction of nuclear weapons. It asks this question, well, does this help science advance in a good way, or is it actually too fast, too much, and does it become actually dangerous for human beings, right? And I think that's one of the things we're supposed to question. The last and most important thing that I think Dr. Manhattan represents is time. At one point, Dr. Manhattan, actually, it's before he's even becomes a physicist, when he's a young kid, when he wants to become a watchmaker, he references this idea of Einstein's theory that time isn't a true thing, that it's actually human beings that have created this concept of time, right? We, as human beings, needed to categorize time, and so we came up with ideas like past, present, and future. We came up with calendars, we came up with clocks, ways to measure this abstract concept of time, right? And I think what Dr. Manhattan has actually allowed himself to do is reference himself and understand himself as an escape from those constructs, those ways that human beings have created, past, present, and future. So he actually allows us to ask this question, well, what does time look like if it's allowed to escape a clock? Right? That's the image that I keep thinking about, is what is time without clocks, without ways to measure it? I think that's something important to think about. The other more specific thing that I think he wants us to think about is our own individual past as seen through memories, right? We see that memory becomes something more present under Dr. Manhattan's understanding of time. And I think that that's seen when he takes only the photograph back with him to Mars, that there's still an element, even though he has escaped the way that human beings understand time, he's taken with him a very important part, which is that photograph, okay? A couple of questions I want us to think about is, why did the other vigilantes retire? I think Dr. Manhattan is really important in making them retire, right? Remember that a vigilante is not someone that has powers beyond the technology they use or their physical capabilities, like their fighting abilities, right? I like to think about Batman versus Superman, not necessarily the movie that's coming out, but Batman is a vigilante. He needs tools, he needs technology to enhance his character, whereas Superman already has all of these powers built into his being, right? And I think comparing that is actually really constructive in answering that question. Why did the Minutemen retire? Why did the Watchmen start to disappear after Dr. Manhattan became who he was? The last and I think more important question is, why does Dr. Manhattan still experience love and lust? If we look at his chapters, we see that he has this very strong relationship. Well, maybe it's not very strong, but he still has a connection with Lori. But in his past, we understood that he had this connection with Janie Slater, right? And I think that that's asking us to think about, well, what does he connect with on a human level? And who, I think most importantly, is who does he connect with on a human level? And I think that's going to be important as we continue to see this book unfold. So think about that. What else does he care for? Not just these women, but he also cares for something else. And I want you to think about what he does at the end of chapter 4 when he's on Mars. He starts to do something, and I think that's indicative of what he actually cares, what he actually wants to do, what he actually thinks he was built to do. Okay, think about that. The last thing I want to touch on is that excerpt from Milton Glass at the end of his chapter. It's supposed to be this scientist, this made-up scientist that Alan Moore created in this article, this scientific article that came out when Dr. Manhattan was first created, right? And I think the important thing that Milton Glass wanted us to walk away with was asking this question about the paradox of war and peace. How are we supposed to work towards peace when it's justified with weapons, right? Dr. Manhattan was asked to step in the Vietnam War in order to establish peace, but they didn't establish peace until he, blew up quite a few things, flexed his supernatural powers, more or less, right? The last thing that Milton Glass wants us to think about, he states that when he originally made a statement, he said, God exists and he's American. I think that's really important to understand, is why would Milton Glass make that statement in the first place? The second thing that's important is that the media heard that statement, according to this book, and they turned it into Superman exists and he's American. My second question is, why did the media warp this statement? Why did they change it from God to Superman? What are the implications behind that, right? So those are just some final thoughts I wanted us to think about as we move forward in the rest of this book. Thanks for watching.